Call to order the Gladstone City Council meeting for January 24th, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. Tonight our agenda is going to be business from the audience, consent agenda, regular agenda items, which is actually we're moving this up. There's going to be a presentation from Metro Councilor Carlotta Collette as soon as she gets here. Then as part of regular agenda, we'll be discussing Resolution 1100, authorizing the preparation of a biannual budget beginning July 1st, 2017. Resolution 1101, which is authorizing some certain city officials to withdraw and transfer funds from the Oregon State Treasury. Resolution 1102, authorizing certain officials to withdraw funds from the U.S. Bank National Association. Then, as the Urban Renewal meeting, we'll be discussing Resolution UR58, again authorizing the preparation of biannual budget beginning July 1st, 2017. Resolution UR59, authorizing certain city officials to withdraw and transfer funds from the Oregon State Treasury. Resolution UR60, authorizing certain city officials to withdraw funds from the U.S. Bank National Association. Then we'll reconvene as the regular agenda to discuss approval of the proposed budget calendar for 2017-2019, discuss the facilitated review of our city administrator, review any business carried forward, additional business from the audience, and then ending with business from the council. Jackie, could you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Councilor Sickman?
Here.
Councilor Neese?
Here.
Councilor Johnson?
Here.
Councilor McMahon?
Here.
Councilor Reisner?
Here.
Councilor Mercereau?
Here.
Mayor Stemple?
Here. Could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We were first going to start with Metro Councilor Carlotta Collette, who's not here yet, and so we'll go ahead and start with some information from staff.
So, Mayor, are we going to do agenda additions or corrections?
Actually, this is agenda additions and corrections. Oh, Carlotta just arrived.
I would like to request an addition to the agenda.
All right.
I'd like to request that we continue our discussion about appointments to committees for council rules and rules committee, ordinance committee, and how the people are going to be chosen for those committees, especially citizens.
Okay, can we add that? Eric and I had talked about that earlier, about bringing that up during business brought forward.
Either way, I think, but we could kind of generally call it follow-up from our strategic planning, and that could be the discussion under that topic. If you want to do it under 11. I'm sorry, let me...
Under...
It could be 10. I
okay.
got ahead of
Business
myself.
Carried forward.
So
yeah.
10.
Okay. Will that be all right, Steve?
That'll be fine, thank you.
Okay.
And then I was going to add the update on the interim senior center director permanent appointment process.
Right, as number 11.
As number 11, thank you. And then, as you mentioned, after our Metro Councilor makes a presentation, I thought we could, under business from the audience, I'd give you a quick update on the Portland Avenue property purchase.
Is that all right? Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, well then I would like to have Metro Councilor Carlotta Collette come up.
I have you ready to go.
All right. Sorry.
It's actually 10 follow-ups and strategic planning. And 11 is, okay.
There might be a few extra. And as I said, I'm sorry I'm late. It's kind of running between meetings today, and it's been pretty tight afternoon. So, and I think I had to cancel earlier, like last fall. So I'm excited to see you have a seated council, full house, new mayor. Congratulations to all of you. And let's get you up to speed. Okay, let's see. It's not working. Do I point at that? No. Where do you want me to point this?
Jackie, it's not working.
Okay, well.
You point it, is the
Jackie's
screen not working for you?
Okay, ready?
There's something there.
There you go.
Okay. So one of the things I handed out to you is the regional snapshots, and this was something that came out of a request from the Metro Policy Advisory Committee that historically our Metro staff had updated the region annually on kind of the status of the region. We called it the State of the Centers. They said we'd need more updates, more targeted, more focused, and so that's what we're doing now. We're doing them, I think, quarterly. So I just handed out the most recent one to you, and I didn't even keep a copy for myself. So is that on? I just need. It's on transportation or housing. Which one is that one?
Housing.
Housing. Okay, no, that's fine. Because there is a newer one that will be out any day now, and we just didn't have it printed for you, so I can make sure that you all get that as well.
And that was on transportation?
And I'm not certain,
Okay.
to tell you the truth, what it's on. But the thing with these snapshots is that what you get in a one-page summary is really the surface, and if you go online to the website that's indicated here, there's just a ton of information. You can really dive down and get specifics about, in this case, housing. What does it cost? Where is it selling? What kinds of housing are people interested in? It's just a very in-depth study, and the online version is just, there's a ton of really a lot of information there for you. And so, as I said, there'll be another one out. Let's see. The new one is on the economy of the region, so that one should be out any day now, and it's particularly focused on the brownfield cleanup. You may have seen today that the administration, the new president, has frozen all EPA grants, so the brownfield cleanup work may be on hold, may be canceled, we don't know, but the $650,000 grant that we had been awarded from EPA to do a brownfield assessment of the economic opportunities from North Milwaukee Industrial all the way to Willamette Falls, that project is now on hold, unfortunately, so we are just have our fingers crossed that this comes together, because we already have been spending money and doing the work, and the way we function and the way the federal government functions is you do the work and you bill them and then they reimburse you or not. So we just learned this today, so it's really important for so much work that we've been doing, particularly in this corridor. This was the biggest grant, EPA grant. So for the region to have gotten this big a grant and to have it on hold now is kind of pretty scary.
What was the amount on that EPA grant?
Pardon?
What was the amount?
$650,000. So, as I said, they used to give much bigger grants, and with them would go sometimes earmarks. For example, you could get an EPA grant to do an assessment and then an earmark. Now there are no earmarks, but the EPA grants are fiercely competitive, and we won the biggest that they award for this project, partly because they really love the Willamette Falls project, and they wanted to be able to help us with somehow recovering the economic opportunities at the Willamette Falls site in Oregon City, but they like to look at larger areas. So we said, well, this whole corridor is underutilized. There are probably thousands of jobs waiting to be created in this corridor if we could clean up some of the brownfields and repurpose the land. And so that's what that grant was for, and they thought it was a really exciting project. Obviously, they awarded the grant, so... Okay. As I said, fingers crossed. You want to do it, or...?
I got it.
Okay. So the other project is the Willamette Falls Legacy Project that links to that, but I wanted to give you an update on it. We, in the fall, in December of 2015, we formed a nonprofit called Rediscover the Falls. We were approved last year. We got our IRS status. We had applied for what they call expedited review, and we didn't hear anything, and we kept thinking, but we're so cool. Why won't the IRS recognize us? Turned out the IRS recognized us very quickly. They sent the information to the wrong P.O. box. So we waited all year thinking that we'd been either rejected or just not noticed. And we finally reached somebody at IRS. They said, no, you were recognized very quickly. So we are up and running. We have a phenomenal board. Right now it's a smallish board of all experienced fundraisers. I've never worked with a more gung-ho, ready to go, roll up your sleeves, hardworking board. And I think all of you know the Willamette Falls Legacy Project is going to be a tremendous asset for the whole region, but I think especially, again, this area, from Gladstone, Oregon City, West Lynn. We will all, I think, benefit from it. So that is off and running. They're anticipating raising first phase of $10 million, and I'm pretty sure we can do it. I'm really very excited about it. And we're putting together a tour, and you will get an invitation, particularly new councilors and new electeds, but actually it's to everyone in District 2, my district, who has not been on site and would like a tour, or even if you've been on site and want to go back, we will be arranging a tour for you. So possibly when the design team is in town, and we can then also roll out some of the designs. The designs that we're getting from our architect team are really exciting. And right now we're in the public involvement, public information phase, so if you want to see some of the designs, go to rediscoverthefalls.com. That's the website for the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, which is the government partnership, but there's also a link there to the nonprofit group and to all the current design work and to a survey you can take that's actually kind of fun, that asks you things like, what would you like to do at this place on the site? Do you want to have a picnic here? Would you want to have a outdoor movie? What kinds of things would you like to have to see happening here? So I would encourage you to go take that survey. It's a lot of fun. And the other part of the project down in that area is we've kept them separate, but we're Willamette Falls and the Willamette Lofts and the bigger Willamette Falls Heritage Area coalition are all working together to repair and reopen the locks, rediscover the falls, and really regenerate the Blue Heron Mill site, and then have the first West Coast Northwest designation of a historic area for this part of our region. And all of those are in the works. They all feel really positive right now. We did get the first Oregon state designation of a historic area, and so we are pretty confident once things settle in D.C. that we'll be able to also get the first Northwest designation of a heritage area, and that will be for the locks. We're working with the Army Corps of Engineers right now. We had a task force that Governor Barbara Roberts led last fall, and the outcome of that was to form a commission and in order to have a state partner for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which owns that very, very historic locks. Partnering with the Corps, we hope that the Corps and the state of Oregon together will be able to both do the repair work and operate it in an ongoing way for the region. So I think that's another exciting project. Parks and natural areas, we did pass our levy last year, which was a renewal of the old parks operation and restoration levy from several years ago. We awarded $1.8 million, as you see, in grants in December for a lot of work around the region on parks and restoration. This year, I was looking it up, this year you didn't have an application in for Rainierson Creek, but you have in the past gotten a number of grants for work on that area. So we're continuing to move on this. We will not be awarding any more capital grants, the bigger grant projects, because we've spent all of that money now. And unless we go back to the voters at some point for another bond measure of money to buy land, that's where the capital grants money came from. So we have spent that money, but we have a renewal now of the money for restoration grants for the community. It's mostly the money we have now is focused on community grants to restore areas, to do education in natural areas, and to engage the community. We just approved a number of regional flexible funds projects. I think you know Metro coordinates the federal dollars that come to our region for what are called flexible projects, which are generally non-road or really a lower investment in roads and a higher investment in things like transit, bicycles and pedestrians. And it's because that money comes from congestion management and air quality funds, and that's money that's designed to help reduce congestion and improve air quality without necessarily increasing auto traffic. So it's to bring in multimodal. The Highway 43 in West Lynn was awarded, I think, $1.8 million out of that money. It's a very small amount of money. It's very competitive. And then Molalla Avenue in Oregon City was also awarded. I don't remember the amount for that, and it's not on my cheat sheet. So, but Clackamas County did fairly well in this round. And we actually had a third grant that would have been awarded instead of, there are two grants that would have been awarded instead of the Highway 43. They were in Milwaukee, and the city of Milwaukee and the county both agreed to stand down and let West Lynn get their money instead for the Highway 43 project. So it was a really pretty wonderful example of regional collaboration, and Milwaukee saying, give our money to West Lynn for this project, and it's to do a cycle track and pedestrian crossings and safer crossings of Highway 43 from West Lynn up to about Merrillhurst. And if you've ever tried to either bicycle or walk on that, you know it's really very, very dangerous. And we want people to be able to bicycle and walk over there. So that's an exciting one. And Metro got into the business of equitable housing this year. We created a special program of funding for communities to look at what are the barriers keeping you from having more affordable housing in your community. Some communities are doing things like, I think in Milwaukee, they want to do a pilot project where they'll build tiny houses, potentially for veteran housing or family housing, but tiny houses on a larger lot that will include green spaces. So we awarded them a grant to look at the feasibility of doing that. Beaverton is doing an assessment of what land they have available that the city might own or that might be inexpensive that they could buy to do affordable housing. So there's I think 8 grants were awarded around the region, and each of them will help teach all of us better ways of addressing the housing crisis that we're all facing, I think, all across the region. It's affordable housing nowadays. I mean, I couldn't afford to live in my house if I hadn't paid for it 20 years ago. So affordable housing is taking on a very different meaning in I think, today's culture. And so we're really looking at how do we make anyone be able to own a home. For many people, it's just so totally out of reach. Another big emphasis at Metro, certainly over the past 5 or 10 years, has been equity in our region. Last year, we adopted the Strategic Plan on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and there's 5 major strategies in there. 4 of them are pretty much internal. They have to do with providing better workforce training, more affirmative action, really reaching out in terms of employees understanding unconscious bias. But there is one of the 5 objectives is really that Metro help model and work with other communities to try to figure out how you can address diversity and equity and inclusion in your communities. So we are doing a number of things. The first one, we're taking on what we heard when we did the strategy, particularly from the construction industry, was unlike 5 or 6 years ago, we now have a glut of construction going on and not enough trained people to be doing the work. And they asked us to create a program to target women, communities of color, and others to help train them in the construction field, find them positions, get them into the pipeline of construction work in the region. So we've created a program we call C2P2, Construction, Construction Career Pathways something. It's one of these programs. That's it. Anyway, you get it. Construction Career Pathway Program. Got it. And we will be working with the community college, with some of the unions who do training and apprenticeship programs. We'll be working with some of the builders in the region, some of the developers, to actually train people, identify them, train them, and get them into jobs, because a lot of projects are either being bid up too high, too expensive, or just not getting done because there are not enough trained people right now in the workforce. We have very low unemployment in the region right now, and a lot being built. So that's the biggest one that we're working on. And the name was right there. Construction Career Pathways Project. I should read my slides. So here's the one I talked about earlier, the Brownfield Corridor. It's actually, I think it's $650,000. 20 sites, technical assistance. As I said, it's on hold. We will move forward as quickly as we can, but right now I think all EPA grants are on hold.
Did we have any projects in Gladstone?
Not yet. No actual projects had been identified yet. The idea is to, first we were creating this advisory committee, and I reached out to some people here as well as all along the corridor to recommend people for the advisory committee. And then we'd start looking at what are the sites along the way. Metro has had a brownfield assessment program for many years now with EPA, but they're small. We've done them in most cities, and this is a biggie. And to be able to do a whole corridor and think in terms of how you could transform a whole corridor with the kind of remediation that we would need to clean up some of these sites, even just things like abandoned gas stations. There's a shop right down the street from my house that a car repair business that we did some work on earlier. Now they're going to convert it into something else. I don't know what, but the car repair business was there for many years and decided now that it was cleaned up they could sell it. So we'll see how it gets redeveloped. The Convention Center Hotel we're very excited about. We typically, we were at the permit stage now, and typically design review and permitting with the City of Portland can take 6 months to a year. And we formed an agreement with the City of Portland and worked with them to expedite our review, and we had the review within a few months. So we are about to sign all the papers, do all the terms, finalize the last details of the design and permitting, and break ground. And we should have it open, I think, in 2019. And again, my notes don't tell me, but I'm pretty sure 2019 is the date we have open. We're already scheduling larger conferences for the new hotel. This has been a record. 2016 was another record year for the kinds of revenues generated in the region by Metro's venues, the Convention Center, the Zoo, Expo, and the Portland Performing Arts Centers, the Portland 5, generated over $1 billion, or just about $1 billion in economic revenue in 2016, which is a record year for us. So we have been told by many people who want to hold conventions here that if we had a convention center hotel, so people wouldn't have to stay downtown and take the MAX across, they would bring much bigger conferences here. So we're booking from 2019 out already. And then our baby girl at the zoo. If you haven't seen the videos of Nora, you really should go online. She's on YouTube. You can pretty much Google Nora the polar bear and see the videos. Nora came to us this fall. She was born at the Columbus Zoo, and polar bears in general, whether they're in the wild or in captivity, have about a 50% chance of survival. Nora's mother rejected her 5 days out of the womb, and her chance of survival dropped to 0. The staff at the at the Columbus Zoo decided they had nothing to lose by trying to raise her by hand. There have only been 6 polar bears known in the history of polar bears being known, 6 of them that have survived being raised by hand, and Nora is one. And when they have a breeding program at the Columbus Zoo for polar bears, they couldn't keep her there because she had not been working with other polar bears. She'd been working with humans and raised by humans. So they offered her to us, and we had planned to have our old Tassel, our old female polar bear, actually mentor her and sort of teach her what it's like to be a polar bear. Unfortunately, Tassel was very old and died last fall as well, and so now Nora is kind of having a ball. She has the whole polar bear land to herself up there, and we're building a new, bigger exhibit for polar bears, and we will get more companions for her. But right now, our feeling is she doesn't realize that she's a polar bear. In fact, the first time we introduced Tassel and her together, the joke around the zoo was Nora was looking at people and saying, does anybody know there's a polar bear in here with me? It's a little worrisome. If you look at the videos, I mean, they both kind of walked out and they looked at each other and both turned around. But she's delightful. She's a world celebrity because, as I said, there's only 6 have been raised by hand and survived. So she is out now and loved the snow, loved this winter that we have all had to deal with. Yeah, she was just rolling in it. I mean, the video is hilarious. She just kind of, she like falls into the snow. She's just totally blissed out. So the weather was great for some of us, and mainly that one. We're about to have the grand opening of the Conservation Center, the Conservation Education Center up at the zoo, and we'll be sending you an invitation to that as well. I know Mayor Byers used to come to all the openings at the zoo. Many of you took advantage of the tour we had a couple of weeks ago, or was that December? Anyway, yeah, not too long ago. So we hope you'll come back up and see the finished Conservation Education Center. And I think that's it. So, any questions? I kind of sped through it, but...
I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
One of them is, what is the commercial demand for the locks?
Well, that's part of the analysis that's being done right now. There was analysis done about 3 years ago, but it was during the recession. There is one particular business, Wilsonville Concrete, that has used the lock, and actually the owners there have been the people who've maintained the locks. They had their barges custom built to fit in the locks because the locks are small. They're 40 feet across, and that's apparently or 40 feet one way, a very small lock. So they actually custom built their barges relying on that locks. What we think in the future will be much more of a recreational use. What we're hoping to see is with the revitalization across the river and some revitalization in West Lynn on that site, we will have people who want to be traveling up to the Willamette Falls site above the locks and upriver. We are getting support from communities like Canby and others who could really benefit from having both the commercial use and the recreational use of the locks. So we don't have a number yet because we're just starting the current study. We have a bill into the legislature to help fund that, and I think has Mayor Axelrod been out here to talk to you? I know he is approaching the cities in the general area to see if you'd be willing to help contribute to creating this commission and staffing it so that we can move forward with the Corps of Engineers, because so far Metro and the county have been paying for all of the work along with a state grant that we spent last year on this initial study.
Do you have plans for extending light rail, Orange Line?
No,
on your list
you mean south? Well, when 2008-9, we did the regional plan for future light rail extensions. Getting to Oregon City, either along extending 205 or extending the Orange Line, was the third priority of all the future projects. The first priority was Powell Division, and right now we're looking at what will be a bus rapid transit on Division and not on Powell and not light rail. The second one was the Southwest Corridor, which the voters just approved moving forward on in Tigard. So that project will hopefully, again, it's not clear what the federal government's going to do now, but we thought we had about 50% matching funding from the federal government to move forward with that. Those are the two first ones. The third one in the queue in that planning phase was to look at this corridor and whether it would come down McLaughlin or come down 205 and extend the 205 Green Line. None of that has been determined, and again, the funding is really pretty unpredictable right now. So
you don't see that anytime soon?
I'm not seeing it maybe in my lifetime, because I hope to live a very long time, but probably not in my metro career. I mean, I think it's going to take 10 years or more just to get the Southwest Corridor funded and built, and I think the date they're thinking of for the bus rapid transit on Division is like 2020. So these, as you know, the Orange Line took 20 years, I know, because I worked on it for 20 years. So it takes a long time to build that kind of infrastructure and to fund it and to get community buy-in, so.
Very good, thank you.
Uh-huh.
No other questions?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
this is real quick, I'm sorry. A couple things I just wanted to mention. Martha Bennett's been great to work with.
Oh, good.
And in fact, when I recently met with her, I thanked her for the downtown revitalization grant.
Right.
And told her we were spending your guys' money well, and she was pleased to hear that. I think we're going to finish that up in April of this year. So
excellent.
We should be back to you maybe for some more money when it comes to some of the revitalization and also the trolley bridge trail feasibility.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hung up.
You still have that money, right?
Yeah, it's hung up at ODOT.
The bridge is gone, but the money's still there.
Yeah, we've got the agreement's hung up with ODOT. It's going to be a three-way agreement between the city and ODOT, and then Clackamas County is going to assist with the engineering. But so just stay tuned to that, because I think when you talk about legacy and some of the other things that are happening in Oregon City, plus the Cove project, that could really bring some good synergy between the two communities, and so we'll keep you up to date on that. Some of the other transportation items is we're in the middle of a TSP and a parks plan, so we may be back.
Oh, good.
With some of the ideas that come out of that planning process.
Right.
So.
Yeah, as I said, we spent the capital grants money for Parks and Nature, but we have, because of the levy renewal, we have a substantial amount now for community grants. And a lot of the money that Gladstone has gotten for Rainierson Creek has been those community grants. You have a really engaged community here that's worked on that restoration, and I can't remember if there was anything on the Clackamas other than the trolley trail. So,
right.
But there's that program money will be rolling out soon. I'll be sure to make sure you know about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear us back there? I just want to make sure that our microphones are close enough and that you guys can hear.
Now she is.
Yeah. Okay, the next item was information from staff on the Portland Avenue property.
Maybe I could have Jim come up front just to kind of help through us. This is kind of a quick update on where we're at with various property owners and where they're at. So I'm gonna start maybe with an overview from you. We've got some photos to kind of give everybody kind of the context of the area we're looking at in terms of I think everybody's familiar with the address 18545 is the property we just purchased back in December for our new police department, and obviously it's a very important project along with library and all the other things that we got in the plans, but this is kind of where we're moving forward with some of the development of that property. So, and then I think we'll follow up with David's comments as well.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. So this week I spent a little bit of time trying to touch base with all the renters or leasers. I don't know how that was arranged out there, but I was able to contact most of them, and actually some came to me. And where we're at out there is there's three businesses still left out on the property. There's one in the very back, Timberline Development. There's another one that's a auto recycler, guy by the name of Kyle, and then there's a hair salon up front in one of the middle buildings in that second building. And I believe most of them were here tonight also. So there are some pictures. I snapped some pictures earlier in the week just of what the status was, just so you guys had an update. And I don't know if anybody's been out there or not, but that's where we're at. And talking with them, it sounds like they're needing about a month to get out, maybe just a little bit more is what the vibe was I was getting. And I'm not sure if someone will come and talk in a little bit, but that's kind of where we're at. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Jim, what three businesses are left there? Timberline?
Timberline, and I don't remember what the auto recycler's actual name, business name is, and then, the Sharon Alexander's business, I don't remember what that name is either.
All right, it's just those three.
I don't know what the exact business names are, but yeah, there's three out there.
Okay.
I did talk to Mike that had the business out front, and he's completely out.
Okay.
There's a fenced area, and then the welding shop, I believe, is completely out from what I've heard. And then there's an RV place in the middle that's out. So at this point, the three vacant lots, or the lots there's actually two. There's 4 gates around there. Those lots are empty and they're locked now at the city's lock, so those aren't secured. The other ones are not. We do have plans to turn off the water and secure the building, but there are still people in there, so we're a person in that one. So the back lots are not, they're kind of open, there's not really a gate or anything there, so we have to secure them a different way at some point.
With what they're showing right now, with that debris and everything, is that where you're going to close off?
So if we were to secure the property, yes, that would all be secured with some kind of temporary construction fencing or whatever when the project's can be moving
And then the buildings in front would be...
Just change the locks and secure them that way. So in my understanding, the front building, which is the Shock Foundation, they're there until the end, or the 1st of March, the end of March?
End of March, I think.
Yeah, so
Okay.
all their utilities are still in their names. All the other utilities are now in the city's name, the power, the water, and all that stuff in the second building. So.
Is it costing us extra money with that being left in our name if the businesses stay in there for right now?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're paying the minimum, we're paying a sewer charge regardless, because it's through Oak Lodge. And then the power, whatever power is being used, and the water has not actually been shut off yet. I mean, we're still waiting for some direction on that, but yes, it is in our name, so the city's
What's the
paying.
sewer charge? Do you have any idea?
I want to say it's, because it's billed by monthly, I want to say it's like $40 every couple months.
Okay.
I'm trying to get our bills figured out, but that's Oak Lodge, so I'm not sure what that one is.
That's all right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of that's the information I rounded up this week.
Okay.
Yes.
Eric?
No, I was going to also mention, when we look to secure the fencing in this area, is there a better picture that kind of shows where that fencing would go? I know we have some issues with some of the right-of-way through there. Can you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, if you look down the fence line, there is stuff out past, which the fence line we're assuming is property if you look at the aerials and all that stuff. And if you look down that fence line, there is stuff spilled out into the right-of-way. So to fence it, we'd have to actually fence out into the right, if we did it with everything there. But like I said, I talked with them, the guys back there, and they're needing a little more time to get out, so.
Okay.
So it hasn't been done yet.
Okay. So David, do you want to go through the correspondence and the timing and things?
Yeah, so let me just start off by saying I did get a call on Friday from an attorney in Beaverton, a guy named Dave Griggs, who said he's representing, I believe, the Timberline development, the Northwest Auto Recyclers, and the Cars R Us. That's my understanding. He was going to send me an email with that information. I haven't gotten that yet, and I've pinged him to say, hey, you know, can you give me that? And I haven't heard back from him. We had a professional, good conversation. He was trying to get some more information about, you know, what the city's intent was, etc. I explained to him how we do have agreements with the tenants that the sellers identified, and Ms. Alexander was not one of those. I understand that Eric has had a subsequent conversation with her, and I want to emphasize, as we did with Mr. Mays, as we did with Shock as well, you know, we were willing to sit down with people. We premised our sort of approach to this on that. So we do have, you know, various agreements that we have with the former tenants. Many of them were signed around mid-October. We've paid the tenants what those agreements call for. And in that, they agreed to vacate by January 2nd. So I think one of the issues that needs to be sort of recognized from my perspective is a distinction between staying on the property in my mind without a legal right to be there, from a belief or claim that they are entitled to more money as a result of the city's purchase of the property. That's a disagreement. It's a legal disagreement. I haven't had a chance to have that conversation yet with, in this case, Mr. Griggs. I hope to. But at this point, as I've said in the past, we feel that we've complied with what we needed to legally comply with. That said, these things are, I don't disrespect the views. I know we got another letter today from, I believe it was Timberline Development. I guess Eric and I sort of take our direction from the council, of course, but I think it behooves us to have additional conversations with folks. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we've wanted to do that from the get-go, and we have with some of the tenants. We expressed to the sellers, look, if other people want to have a discussion about this, please contact us. So yes, we feel we have agreements here. They're signed. I know there's controversy about that, but litigation is an expensive thing. It's a real, I would say, drain on energy. You guys have a lot going on, many projects here, and so I don't know where this will go. And there's probably things that we should talk about maybe after we get a chance to, after I get a chance to talk with at least those three former tenants, their legal counsel. Maybe we sit down with them eventually, and then come back to you, and I can give you some advice in a closed session. I'm loath to do that, given the fact that we've gotten some feedback from people that litigation may be in the offing. But as I've always said to you, I just I think it's part of a city attorney's job. Obviously, it's number one, make sure that my client is doing what it needs to do legally, protect my client's interests, but also look at pragmatic ways to solve problems as well. And so, if there's an opportunity to do that, I think, unless the council has an objection, we should explore that.
My question is, it just seems like there's a disconnect somewhere along the path that brought us to this point. I don't know where that was. I don't know if we weren't assertive enough in the beginning to bring people to the table. But moving forward, I think, as you said, it would probably behoove us to bring people to the table and have these discussions. I think that's the smart thing to do, because we don't need to be tied up in another lawsuit.
Yeah, I think that, I think in hindsight, the issue probably was not having enough follow-through with the sellers. I don't think that they really, I know that they were getting frustrated. There were issues with the property in terms of having a DEQ sign-off with respect to a tank that was out there. That took some time, and so I think there was they didn't have a realtor. They didn't have an attorney, so I think maybe, one regret I have is just sort of assuming that message was being carried, and I don't know that it was. But I also think, to be clear here, I mean, these are, from my perspective, agreements that we signed in good faith. And I mean, that's a factor going forward as well, in terms of, what everybody's position is here. I don't think that can be ignored.
So I think that, I realize this sounds contrary, but I think it's very positive that these folks are represented. And I think that you should be working with their attorney. I think that will help bring this situation to a conclusion one way or the other. And I agree, I think that the sellers probably should have been represented either by an attorney or a real estate agent originally, but I realize there's an expense there to these folks, but I think that's a positive step forward, so I would encourage that to continue.
David, could I ask, just kind of separating the issue of the discussion about the disagreement we have legally on what the leasers are legally provided versus being on the property without any legal right.
Yeah, I mean,
expand on that?
Sure. I mean, I think, again, it's, they're two separate issues, legally speaking. I mean, on the one hand, being there without any legal right to be there is essentially a trespass. And I have no immediate intent to do this, and I would need, the council's authorization to do it anyway. But that, that could be the basis for what we would call basically an eviction. That takes some different forms legally, but that's maybe the easiest way to put it. Again, I mean, the agreement was that they would be there no later than January 2nd. So that is distinct from, a compensation issue. And, again, I feel we've met that legally, but, at the same time, I don't want to make it seem, and I felt when we met with one of the former tenants and the sellers, Eric and Jackie and I met with them, that we made that abundantly clear that, if this is not something that others, and that was the basis for the meeting. One of the sellers, one of the tenants said, this isn't going to work for me, and so, we tried to make it workable, and I thought we left that meeting, at least with that tenant, with a thumbs up. Same thing for Shock. So, I just feel that at the very least, before everybody starts really digging in their heels here, that it's worth having some conversations.
I think it is too.
Yep.
So let me also just mention a couple things. One is, I had a meeting today with Sharon and the friend, I think his name was John Heiner, and we spoke and talked about, the issue of the compensation, and again, this was a meeting, Jackie was there. Anyway, it was basically a verbal request that we pay them $14,900, and that was based on $800 a month rent for three months, $500 for moving expenses, and $1,000 a month because of the loss, changing businesses. They're making the point that there's business loss, and this would compensate for that amount. I guess my question is, I think we've always been flexible on time. We've got one of our, when we signed the original agreements, the leasers that we were talking to were happy with the December 31st deadline and signed that as such. You have the document. January 2nd, but then you have that in the email I sent to you, that correspondence that identifies that was the earlier arrangement. But we do also have, Shock that's going to be there through the end of March. So I think in terms of flexibility, we have flexibility on time. Now the only other financial consideration that was made with the additional time we gave Shock was the free rent. And that had some value of, I forget what the number was, but it was close to $3,000-4,000. I guess those are the two areas that I want to just get clear from the council. Are we open to entertaining anything beyond that, like was, I use the example from today's discussion, are we open to looking at moving expenses and lost income due to, a business relocation, or are we confined to timing and pre-rent? And then, on top of that, we also have the situation which was mentioned before with the water connection.
Utilities.
Not wanting to have a situation where we're, in a sense, the landlord. What's everyone's feeling about moving forward with that, the disconnect or connect? So.
Well, I know last night at the coffee with the counselor, it seemed that the time was a big factor, that none of them really were able to find a new location with the short time frame that they were given to leave, which was, for some, I guess, a matter of days. So I think, first off, we should go ahead and extend it. 30 days, I think, is what Jim said is what they feel would be sufficient.
That's what I was going to ask. What do they feel?
Well, and I don't have those answers yet, but I guess I'm just...
Something to talk to them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
It's the discussions with...
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different,
Right.
We heard today verbally, give me a month. But I guess the key thing there is if we're going to go down that road, we want to have something signed that says, okay, we agree to this and we will be...
With a date.
Yeah, it has to be similar to what we had previous, which were agreements for a date to January 2nd. We would approach it the same way. And the only two that were not, again, part of those agreements were the Alexanders and Mr. Schwab. Schwab having an RV, and we had an agreement with the Kemetic, Karen, is it Karen Kemetic? For
Lynn
Kemetic for that business. So it's going to vary on the time. But I'm looking for a little bit more direction for David and I if we're going to go and talk. It's time and no rent, and
or they pay utilities, or what? How flexible are we, Kim?
Couple of things. One, I really, at this point, I don't know that we don't know where this would end up. I would like to give you the opportunity to speak with these people, and see what it is that's going to work for them, and be able to come back to us and have that discussion. I would much rather see us not renegotiate agreements right now based on what we think.
I agree.
I think it would be better to just not enforce an eviction at this time, but keep the dates. I mean, we always can come back and say, you were supposed to be out January 2, and that's what we're basing the eviction on if things don't work, if we can't work things out. If you're able to come up with something and bring it back to council that council can agree with, then I think we could look at pinning down another agreement with new criteria. The couple of things I am concerned about, I'm not too much concerned about the water or the sewer. I mean, that's probably pretty minimal down there. Electric, they'll probably already have their own electric bills in their name, I assume. No, they're all in cities now?
Shock.
John said that. Jim said that.
Okay.
That it was.
But I don't know that that's a huge expense to really make a decision one way or that's going to make my decision that, well, yeah, we definitely got to do this or we definitely don't do this. One of my biggest concerns, especially after seeing some of the pictures, is immediately verify they've got liability insurance on all of their properties, because we are now the property owner. And if they don't have some sort of liability insurance, if somebody goes in there and gets hurt, it's on us, not on them.
Can we require an additional insured certificate or something?
We actually did talk, well, I didn't personally, but I believe Jackie talked with CIS to make sure that, you know, they were aware of it and that the insurance that the city has, you know, is sufficient in terms of covering something like that. But you're right, I mean, there's a practical kind of concern about, okay, you know, there is a decent amount of things out there that, you know, if someone were to wander around could potentially hurt somebody, so.
You know, and so that's my biggest concern, is to make sure that, I would like to allow you guys, staff, to have the opportunity to work with these people. But we also need to make sure that we're protecting the rest of our citizens from lawsuits and other such things, on liability that we...
Well, okay, let's talk about that specifically. So putting up a fence would secure that area, and we could let people in and out at a request. Is that what you're talking about? To be able to secure that? Because I agree with you. I have concerns similar about the tires and what happens if they catch, you know, on fire, and all the other things that can happen when you just let property that the city owns be open like that. Is that what you're talking about, or what are you?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I guess I'm not really talking about. That is what I'm concerned with, is some sort of liability policy.
Yeah.
I think of it from the business aspect, which I understand. City, corporation, and actual city private business is a little bit different. But if somebody is a property owner that's not the city, they will require their tenants to carry liability insurance because they've got they have control of that property.
So essentially you want us to be in the landlord business, is that what you're saying?
Just for a couple weeks?
Yeah.
For a couple weeks till David gets an opportunity to sit down with them.
Our next meeting isn't scheduled until February the 14th, so would we, extend it till...
Well, we're already in the landlord business with Shock, and that's until March, so, I mean, it's not going to change.
And they have a meter, and, we have all those kind of things, but it's a little...
But they carry it, they should have insurance anyway, and so they should be able to continue that and carry it on.
And that's something I can, you know, again, I hope to talk with Mr. Griggs tomorrow, put in another call to him, but that's something I can certainly pursue. I mean, I agree, I think that's, at the very least, something that should be carried, so.
And I believe if we find out certain things one way or the other, we could always call a special meeting if need be to address this prior to the 14th. I mean, if it rose to that level, we could.
I do think that, time is, I wanna, these are the kind of things that just, we just gotta get this addressed. We gotta deal with it, for everybody's sake.
Yep.
And so, I would push to get that happening, tomorrow.
But I do agree with Tammy. Somewhere there was a disconnect, and Comedic, I don't think, followed through. That's we are where we are. I mean, there's a lot of finger pointing that can go on. There's a lot of like I said, I mean, I think if we may end up going forward in some sort of legal claim here. I mean, I don't know. Right?
So do you need a motion from us? Or
no, I just some consensus. No, I just want to make sure that, that I sense that that's kind of where the council would want to go anyway. I mean, I did read the article. I know there's been a lot of discussion about this, so...
But we have an offer on the table, I guess, that's talking about us paying moving expenses and loss of income. Are we interested in negotiating those type of terms, or what are we saying?
I don't think we're required to, from my understanding.
And I think that that's a figure that is very high, I will be candid.
Yeah.
So.
I think that just needs to be part of the discussion that you have with them and see what they're...
I agree. I think it does.
Yeah.
I think instead of the 7 voices, it should be you discussing with their attorney, and come to an agreement of some sort and bring it back to us.
Yeah, I was going to say very similar things. I think it's the goal of the city to bring this to a conclusion. These are good people. I got no beef with them, but they're neighbors. But as a representative of the city, it's my concern that we bring this to some sort of a conclusion. I mean, it needs to come to an ending point. And I think that we'll go a long ways to do that if you are working with their council. I mean, I don't mean to be repetitive, but I think that's important at this point. And then what you come up with, bring it back to the council. It may very well be moving expenses and, some of those sorts of things. That may be where we're headed. But I think that we probably need to get whatever it is, some buy-in from the attorney, and something that's a little more solid than what we have right now from a legal...
Absolutely. I think it's in an early stage at this point.
Right, and you're going to start that process, I think you said.
I think I've tried to already do that. I mean, we had the conversation on Friday, and I put in a message to him today, and I just didn't hear back, so I will do that again tomorrow.
Right, thank you.
Okay, Tom?
There's two questions in my mind, which I think you've got one pretty much answered. One is the relocation thing. That's got to be worked and resolved to whatever satisfaction. The second is the risk to the city for that property. Now, my understanding is we own the property. Okay? We own everything that should be moved at this point.
No, it's not. That's our. We sort of are kind of caretaking it, if you will. But it's not. It does not become our property.
Okay. The thought about securing that property, I would consider thinking about that soon. In that there's a lot of junk there now. I suspect there may be more. And securing it so our people protect their goods, it protects ours, and we don't have more to get rid of if that comes to be.
That can be a part of the conversation.
Again, so you're kind of talking about being able to fence and secure. I'm hearing from the rest of the group that that's not necessary. So I just wanted to point out
I'm suggesting to the group to consider that. You're talking about, I believe, one spot across the road. You may have a bit more than that. It's not a big project.
Again, you got consensus. I'd really, based on all of the energy that's been behind this, I'd really appreciate more of a motion so that we have something.
A motion?
Yeah, I think we need something that's, because what I'm hearing is going forward, we leave the water on, we don't fence, we, are open for their attorney to contact our attorney to negotiate terms based on potential rent, future rent, moving expense, and lost business income and timing is what I'm hearing. Am I missing anything else here? Is there another?
No. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to move forward.
Also include the attorney.
Staff would include the city attorney's office to move forward to have discussion with the parties of the property, the street address.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. It's 18545 we've got.
At 18545 Portland Avenue.
Does that include Mr. Schwab? Is that an RV parked in there? Or what do we?
People that the city attorney's office feels has standing. Would that be correct?
That's fair enough. I know what you mean by that.
Okay.
And for the record, I don't believe Mr. Schwab does. I mean, it's people that reside on the property or operate a business on the property, and that assumes that, we're talking about something where the act is applicable.
Okay.
So, I think you know what I mean.
Okay.
I second that.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to make one comment. I have to agree with this, but they have known about this since July because I've had conversations with people that were not on city council in July who knew about a potential sale. So it's not like they just all of a sudden found out in December. They have known for a long time that this potentially was going to happen, so I just want that clear.
I'm not sure, Eric. Steve?
I am not opposed to a special meeting to discuss this even as early as tomorrow. I mean, if you want to schedule one and you want us to come and discuss it, this is an important issue. So we don't necessarily have to wait until February 14th. You know, if we need to get this, if we need to hear back from you, and we need to make some sort of a motion or resolution, I'm willing to meet pretty much any time in the very near future.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'm concerned, and I get what Eric is saying about putting the fence up and securing it, and I understand that. And then the fact that Sharon is in there and she's working still, and then we have to worry about finding a staff person to go and unlock the gate and letting her in and out if she sets her appointments up.
Okay. Anything else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Thank you. So now we're ready to get on to the normal business. Anybody have anything else for the additions and... Nope. Okay, so the next thing is business from the audience.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two people that have signed up. The first is Bill Osborne.
Bill Osborne, 7160 Monteverde. First, I'd like to say thanks. I think a lot of what you guys just done was probably normally done in executive session, so it's nice to see some of the behind-the-scenes things discussed in front of us. I had a couple questions, one being that the liaisons at the end of the meeting, it was kind of left up to a question as far as they were suspended or not. I know that it seemed like there was some dispute. I was just wondering if that is cleared up yet.
We're working on it.
Okay. Which brings me to the second question, or, well, maybe there'd be more than two, but everybody knows there's a recall effort going on, and there's a news article about it. One thing I had a question about on the liaison request for Steve Johnson to step down, why that never happened. It seemed like the library board was pretty clear about it, and I'm just wondering why Mr. Johnson didn't step down on his own accord, since he kind of put it on you as having the power in the article. Is that anything you want to comment on?
We got a minute and a half.
I'll make one comment. The question was asked at the council. I, in fact, did answer the question that Steve will remain a liaison at the moment, because there's quite a bit up in the air about the method of which about the letter of request was in the first place. Second was, that I don't believe is noted, is that we discussed, and Linda Neese was also a second liaison working with Steve to help resolve the problem.
Another thing I just wanted to clarify in the news article, Councilor Sickman, I never communicated that I thought you didn't have a First Amendment right. My criticism of you was putting they were Kim Sickman, Gladstone City Council President, as if the council endorsed that. I know you mentioned in the article that you have freedom of speech, your First Amendment rights, but it seemed when Councilor Reisner talked with the paper and mentioned goings-on behind the scenes, that you were one of the people who was most critical. In fact, you guys stripped him of his liaison duties. So I was just wondering why it seems like there's a double standard on when certain people in the group have the freedom of speech, and other people, when they exercise that, are penalized.
Thank you.
And I would point back to my previous speech about when people say no comment or don't comment, just how
The
people...
comment on that one, I'll answer that one. Okay, I would like to try to answer that one.
Thank you.
On the comment about the Neil Reisner issue, okay, what was reported was partially a fabrication of the actual truth, okay, which finally, I believe, after about 3 sessions, it was answered almost accurately. Okay, I believe Sickman just made a comment about what he believed was the case, and that was reported accordingly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Next.
Greg Alexander.
Greg Alexander, 145 East Hereford, Gladstone, Oregon. I gotta tell you, I'm impressed. You keep that positive attitude, and there goes all 4 pages of my stuff out the window. Yeah, guys did good. You did a good thing. The only thing I could say was when you were doing that, just some things I wanted to touch on was, like you say about they knew, for so long. We got paperwork that shows 5 different dates. So they knew, but then they didn't know, and then when they came and asked, it couldn't be commented on. So, I mean, it was an up and down, sort of thing about when it was actually going to happen and not. And addressing you guys, my mom didn't sign that. And then when I asked the person I talked to today, the attorney said, he went down and looked, he's been there before, and he said, well, her name's on the door, her business license has that address. You guys should have known that she was a tenant there. So, and you have to address the tenants, not Lynn. Lynn, you can't expect Lynn to handle it all. And then the other one is, that's it, Mom, my mom didn't sign, and the Relocation Act. He said that is a big thing. These people are citizens, they have jobs, they need money, they need to relocate. It costs more in today's, she's been down there 20 years now to go find the deal she's getting now. It isn't going to happen. She's not going to find it anywhere. So that's more money out of her pocket. And if you do, I was just listening, I think it's fair what you're doing, giving them time and all that. I don't think they all have their own insurance anyway, and I don't think you should lock it up. And if you decide to put a fence up, that's fine too, but I think the people that have the equipment there, my mom and all that, should get a key. Because her appointments are based on when people can show up and get, so, and that's it. Besides that, I was really impressed that you addressed it, and the council did what they did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Well, Mr. Alexander. Next.
That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Awesome. All right. Well, then we can get on to the consent agenda. Any discussion?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Tag team. Okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda was made by Councilor Steve Johnson and seconded by Councilor Pat McMahon. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Any correspondence? I know it says none here. Has anything come in?
No, you were sent all the correspondence.
Everything.
Earlier this afternoon. So
Great. Okay, so on to the regular agenda. The first item is discussion of Resolution 1100, authorizing the preparation of biennial budgets beginning July 1st, 2017.
Okay, Mayor, Council, we have several resolutions in front of us tonight talking about the biennial budget and recommending that we move forward with implementing the biennial budget process. Carolyn, our county manager, has provided a lot of information that we've shared previously about the benefits of the biennial budgeting process. It maintains the accountability, but it also provides some relief in terms of having to provide, an annual budget every year versus going through the budget process once every 2 years. Although there is a budget that's approved during those off years, but it's not the same kind of a process of having a budget committee and that kind of thing. At the direction of the in our council retreat, there was some interest in making sure that the budget committee was informed of this action tonight, so we sent out an email with a link to the staff reports and the information, although we had discussed that with the budget committee previously, as well as some of the reporting that that we talked about in terms of the monthly reporting, so that they were kept up to speed with kind of the financial status of the city on a monthly basis. So, again, there's several topics, several items in your requesting and recommending that we go with the biennial budget process, both with the general fund and urban renewal fund areas. There's also some changes and I don't know if you want to talk about, go into some of the certain city officials' changes because of personnel updates.
Are we going to do this one at a time, or do you want to just kind of lump them all together and give it to staff?
I think we have to keep the urban renewal and the regular agenda separate.
Okay.
But I guess, without trying to confuse the situation, I guess perhaps we can talk about item 5 and 2 at the same time, because they're essentially the same. It's the same action.
Okay.
You know, if you had any questions.
And 3 and 6 and 4 and 7.
And I was asked this, and Carolyn, did I miss anything?
No, you did
all right.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Hi.
Hello.
So, I think, are there any questions around the biennial budget or
any of the other? We'll just.
What kind of a time saving do you anticipate going to the biennial? Because I would assume that you're not, I won't say wasting staff time every year from January to June, but definitely by doing a 2-year budget, you are saving some time. Do you have any idea, a guess or anything? Or do you want to even throw anything out? I believe you are saving time, so that's...
Yes, and that's...
Oh, shoot. Are you okay?
Oh, God.
Bad, Pam. I shouldn't have said that.
On her bill.
Yes, as I talked about in the town hall, I have 2 seasons. I have budget season and I have audit season, and they do blend together, and so there is a time savings involved. However, given that, I mean, there's still constant monthly reports, there's still going to be contingency transfers, there's still an annual process around adopting a budget, the certification for taxes and all of those kinds of things happen every single year. So even if you do a biennial budget, you still have to do part of the process every single year.
Okay.
So if there is an extraordinary event of some sort, I did go to your budget class. I'll probably go again because I probably missed parts of it. But if there are extraordinary events, we can reopen the budget process. There's a process for doing that, right?
Absolutely. Oregon State statute accommodates for those kinds of things, emergency things, purchasing kinds of things, using your unallocated funds in case of an emergency. Yes, so at any point, we can be doing that.
Okay, and that would involve the budget committee and those sorts of things potentially as well?
It actually would be the governing body.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Which is council.
Perfect, thanks.
Staff question. You said you had emailed the budget committee, and did you get any response back from any?
I did not, but I think I see a couple of them here, so, okay, well, Mindy's saying I didn't send it, but
Okay.
You didn't get it? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know you're on the list. I know you're in the listserv.
But isn't Brenda and... Did you get it?
Did you guys get it?
Email, but we didn't realize we were supposed to respond back on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate you being here. Is there any downfall for going through a biannual?
So, I will be real honest, I've never done a biannual budget. I know that our city administrator has. I know that our public works director has been part of cities that do it, and I've not heard of a downfall. Other than this year will be really crazy, because I'm also doing a GL chart of accounts change. So, there's a lot of history to be moved, and so just for me, this year's going to be the big push for time.
And this changing from an annual to a change up the, budget committee? Is it affected at all?
So one of the things that would need to be looked at is, City Administrator Swanson and I would need to look at terms and expirations, and if we have any members that would have terms that expire in an off year, we would contact them and see if they'd be willing to extend so that we don't have terms expiring in an off year. We would want those to be staggered to a year where there is an actual budget committee meeting. So, I have looked at it briefly, barely today. I meant to do that today, but my day got away from me. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
So, I wouldn't cut any short. I would extend out. I would offer that up first.
So, their terms are going to be extended from 3 to 4 years? Is that what?
Well, I need to look at each individual budget committee member, excluding council. That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah,
so look at who expires 2018, 2020, 2022, and make sure that I don't have expirations that happen in 19, 21.
Right in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
So then we would probably have to reappoint them for maybe another...
Right, and I will have those details for you. I just didn't have them ready for tonight. Because I had 7 items in tonight's budget.
Totally understandable.
So that would be the next step, and I didn't want to do that until we had direction from council that you were ready to take that step or not. So I didn't want to make an assumption.
I can comment on the biennial. I thought you were in a school district, so I didn't realize.
It's an annual though, so.
Yeah, anyway, so I worked with the biennial. It's the state is on the same process. As you look at, and a lot of cities around us also function in that way with way larger finance staffs and those kind of things. So I think it's a real benefit. If you look at the whereases in the resolution that we're talking about, it does have a lot of benefits for long-range financial planning, preserving the annual updates to budget estimates as requested by the council. Biennial budget has the potential to be less expensive and time-consuming than annual budgets, thus allowing more time for staff and city council to devote time to program review and evaluation. So I think that's really the two areas that I think really will benefit, taking time that would be better focused on that program evaluation and looking at, what are some of the outputs. And I'm sorry, Mindy, I have an email that says that I sent.
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Well,
If you did the wrong thing, I apologize.
Oh, you
did.
Okay.
And it also had, if you have any questions, contact me or Carolyn. So yes, I apologize if it wasn't clear that there was. Yeah, I guess it was sort of hey, if you have questions.
Came anyway.
Yeah.
Show up.
Yeah, there you go. I'm glad you did.
Thank you for doing that.
Any other questions for Carolyn?
Would you like a motion?
Yes, and I think we're going to do a motion each individually for the regular, and then move on to the urban renewal. Okay.
So I would move to adopt Resolution 1100, authorizing the preparation of a biennial budget for the city of Gladstone.
Second.
All right, motion was made by Councilor Steve Johnson and seconded by Councilor Neil Reisner. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 1100 is passed. Next.
I'll make a motion to accept Resolution 1101, authorizing certain city officials to withdraw transfer funds from non-Oregon State Treasury. Or from Oregon State Treasury, I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
All right, motion was made by Councilor Linda Neese and seconded by Councilor Pat McMahon. Any further discussion?
Did we get all of that motion?
All of the motion.
Where are you at?
Authorizing.
Take a look at page 3-1. The bottom of 3-1 is actually a
name. Okay.
motion.
Okay, I can
I'd like
redo
to ask that you recall your motion and start over.
Okay. I move to approve resolution.
Withdraw your motion.
I'll withdraw my motion. Thank you. I move to approve Resolution 1101, authorizing Eric Swanson, Jackie Betts, Carolyn Gray, and Susan Ledoux as authorized signers on the City of Gladstone pool accounts held by Oregon State Treasury.
Second.
Motion was made by Counselor Linda Neese and seconded by Counselor Steve Johnson. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 1101 is passed. Next.
I move to approve Resolution 1102, authorizing Eric Swanson, Jackie Betts, Carolyn Gray, and Tammy Bannock as authorized signers on City of Gladstone U.S. Bank checking accounts.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Counselor Neil Reisner and seconded by Counselor Linda Neese. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I'm curious.
Wait a minute.
Curious. Wasn't the mayor in the past on that?
So I did look back, and actually, no, we haven't had elected officials as signers on our checking accounts for probably a decade.
My apologies.
No,
I thought Wade and Dominic were.
I think Wade was, but Dominic was not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My apologies.
And I will just say, because, with change of staff, I mean, it's a housekeeping item, but you see how much time we're taking and how many items I have on tonight's agenda, and so it's much more efficient to not have elected.
It was just a curiosity.
Yeah.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 1102 has passed. So would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to recess to the urban renewal meeting.
Second?
I'll second that.
Motion to recess the regular meeting made by Counselor Ken Sickman, seconded by Counselor Pat McMahon, excuse me. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, regular meeting is in recess. So I call to order the urban renewal meeting for the City of Gladstone on January 24th, 2017 at 7:58 p.m. And we're here to discuss Resolution UR 58, UR 59, and UR 60.
We need another roll call. I don't remember.
I was just going to say, no, you can just, for the record, clarify that the roll would stand if it was taken for the council meeting.
Wanted to call it.
Do you want to call the roll, Jackie? Just kidding. So do I need to officially say the roll stand?
As long as it's just on the record, I think my statement is sufficient.
All right. So, discussion on Resolution UR 58, or would someone like to make a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we move to adopt Resolution UR 58, authorizing the preparation of a biannual budget for the City of Gladstone Urban Renewal Agency.
Second.
Motion was made by Counselor Pat McMahon and seconded by Counselor Steve Johnson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution UR 58 has passed. On to UR 59.
I move to approve Resolution UR 59, authorizing Eric Swanson, Jackie Betts, Carolyn Gray, and Susan Ledoux as authorized signers on City of Gladstone urban renewal accounts with Oregon State Treasury.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Counselor Tom Mercero and seconded by Counselor Linda Neese. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution UR 59 is passed. On to Resolution UR 60.
So can I quickly talk about UR 60? On the actual resolution itself, there was a typographical error. So when it has the dates of February 14th, it really should be January 24th. Tammy Bannock caught it this morning, and so when we go to sign documents, it will have the correct date that this will, if passed, this will be effective immediately, as the other motions were. So.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, so yeah, the resolution is effective January 24th, and then the second line yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and so we fixed that, and we'll have that in the official documents. My apologies.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Move to approve Resolution UR-60 authorizing Eric Swanson, Jackie Batts, Carolyn Gray, and Tammy Bannick as authorized signers on City of Gladstone Urban Renewal U.S. Bank checking account.
I'll second.
A motion was made by Councilor Steve Johnson and seconded by Councilor Linda Neese. Any further discussion?
So the changes will be in the mayor's papers to sign tonight?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution UR-60 has passed. Do we have a motion to adjourn the urban renewal meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn the urban renewal meeting and reconvene to regular agenda.
Second. Give it to the nice.
Motion was made by Councilor Kim Sickman and seconded by Councilor Neil Reisner, and Linda Neese was a tie. Councilor Linda Neese. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, urban renewal meeting has adjourned, and we are reconvening the regular agenda. The next item on our regular agenda is approval of proposed budget calendar for fiscal year 2017 to 2019. I'm assuming that's you, since you're sitting here.
It is.
All right.
Yeah. So, document number 8-2 has the proposed budget calendar for the biennial budgets. This will be for the fiscal year, but it will be, all-inclusive. In the off years, it would start with the budget hearing. So all of this page is in the first year of the biennium, and in year 2, we have a budget hearing on down. This is a proposal. Budget committee meetings are scheduled for Monday nights, looking at the council chambers' availability.
Does anyone have any questions?
So, well, I know, Eric mentioned, and I know it's been a question that we've discussed actually, a couple of weeks ago, that the budget committee in the past was asked to meet midway through the year.
Uh-huh.
And is that still possible then, if they so desire?
So Oregon Revised Statute 294 outlines the roles and responsibilities of the budget committee, and I actually had an email from Malachi around this topic, and so I went back to my notes from last year's budget committee, and overwhelmingly the conversation was about, gee, we don't ever see any financials, we never know what happens once the budget's been adopted and all of that, and the compromise or the discussion became around, we've got all new staff and we're doing weekly reports, and the other piece of it is, you as a council are getting financial reports that you had never ever gotten before. You're getting a budget to actual, you're getting your cash flow, you're getting a check register, and so my sense, and in my notes, it was the budget committee as a whole, all 14, were okay with, those are on the web, they're open to the public, everybody can see them, and so they felt like they were at least being able to see them.
Right.
And so there would be no new information that I would give a budget committee, all 14 members, other than what's in, like, for example, the budget to actual.
Mm-hmm.
It is outside 294, ORS 294, for them to meet. There's nothing for them to meet about. They certainly can ask questions of me or City Administrator Swanson at any time around anything, but there's no legal that they meet. I mean, they can certainly meet and they can certainly ask questions.
So if when we went to this biennial, if the budget committee wanted to meet to ask questions as a whole, to take a look at, they can, right? Okay.
But my point is that the purpose of them meeting, according to ORS 294, is to approve a proposed budget. That's the role of the budget committee. And so if they met in an off year, there's no purpose in terms of there's no motion to be made for a proposed budget because we already have an adopted budget. They certainly can ask questions, but they can do that anytime.
Right.
It's more open.
Unless they want something more formal, where they only take
But they still could.
They could, but there's no formality to it. It would be an informal, gathering.
But it still need to be
noted.
Yeah, it would have to be published.
Right,
Have to,
okay.
yeah, have to be noticed.
Maybe I can
But again,
suggest-
there's no,
There's nothing to do.
there's nothing, you know.
But I think what we're talking about, maybe we can discuss when the budget committee comes together this year.
Yeah.
And I would suggest maybe calling it an advisory meeting, talk about it's more of a, hey, this is what's going on, do you
Yeah,
have
because
questions?
it really isn't a meeting of the budget committee because there's nothing to approve. They've already approved
Right.
in the second year
Right, but the ORF allows them to
as an
meet,
advisory.
Yeah.
to meet and look at what has gone on maybe half a year, or in this case...
But they see it every month, I guess is my point.
Well, no, I understand that. But why I bring it up is that, in the past, the impression I got, from staff is they can't meet. ORF doesn't allow them to.
Well, what I'm saying to you, because we have had this conversation, there's no purpose.
They can't make decisions.
Yeah, there's no decision to be made.
Right.
But they can.
Yes.
So what I'm understanding, the way the ORS is written, the budget committee is to adopt or approve a budget, but they're not an oversight committee.
That's right.
Okay, okay.
Council is the oversight committee.
Right.
But by virtue of making, our packets and our financials available, I mean, everybody who's looking at our website or who gets a packet or it's available to everybody. And like I said, when I first started, council wasn't getting any financial reports, so I feel like we've made some huge gains. So
you coming on board has made a huge difference.
Thank you.
In that regard.
I wasn't going for that, but thank you.
But I just like to, my point is that 294.428, subsection 2 says, in addition to being, the reading that that the budget committee has to approve the budget.
That's right.
The budget committee may meet from time to time at its discretion. All meetings of the budget committee should be open to the public.
Well, she's saying that they can meet. That's
what I said, is they can,
meet whenever
but
they want to.
there's nothing to vote on or whatever.
No,
It's
I understand
very
that.
informal.
Okay.
There's
Okay, thank you.
nothing formal about it.
The only other thing I would say, I just want to make sure, I think everybody on the council knows this, certainly, people in the inside understand, that just for the public's benefit, if nothing else, that, the budget committee, the council ultimately adopts the budget.
That's right.
Right, and so, I mean, absolutely, there's a requirement that the budget committee forward, but I think as Carolyn used the word, a proposed budget. I've never been in a situation where that proposed budget doesn't become the final budget. I mean, that's the whole purpose of really having that, council citizen committee where, you talk about all those specifics, but just as a legal matter, I mean, ultimately, it's the council's budget to adopt.
And she has done an excellent job of making sure we get all the information. I'm going to make a motion.
Thank you.
I move to approve proposed budget calendar for 2017-2019.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilor Linda Neeson, seconded by Councilor Neil Reisner. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the proposed budget calendar has passed. Thanks, Carolyn. The next item on our agenda is City of Gladstone Facilitated Review of City Administrator.
Okay, well, I'll talk about this. So I'm just following up from the employment agreement that talks about at the 1-year anniversary. I can't believe it's already been a year. Actually, it's been more than a year and a month. The city council employee will participate in a performance review facilitated by a third-party neutral. This performance evaluation shall be done in executive session and consistent with Oregon Public Meetings Law, and that is in Exhibit A. So, basically, this is a proposal that would, we would go out for an RFP, see what kind of companies are interested in facilitating this. I mean, there's a pretty extensive process if you look through the RFP in terms of how we would proceed with the process so that we could be at a point where, this could conclude. I believe we looked at March, April timeframe. So, anyway, this was just an opportunity to kind of move forward with that, with the language in the contract and looking at doing this. This is a process that's been used. It's not everywhere, but has been used and is being used with other cities. The interesting part of it is it actually involves kind of a 360 look. In other words, it's council, it's citizen involvement, it's staff involvement, it's folks we do business with is involved, and so I think that's always a good thing to get different perspectives, because obviously most time you see me is here and now, but I spend a lot of time doing other things, and you probably hear about me, but maybe you don't you're not necessarily there day to day, and I think by getting some of that input from others is a good thing. We all have ways that we can improve ourselves. As we took our disc inventory last couple of weeks, we know where we're strong and weak, and so it's always a good opportunity to find those areas and continuous improvement. Right, that's our
Yep.
one of our goals in the city in terms of looking at our in terms of the strategic planning we just got done discussing. So I'm here to answer any questions. Like I said, it's one area that's they're given additional points as if there's someone that responds to this that's located in Gladstone, they get an additional 5 points in the scoring category.
That's so important. I love that addition.
Good idea.
Thank you. Yes, Kim.
I have a couple of questions. Page 9-13 of our packet, it says Exhibit A, and it starts with the municipal judge may. Is that just a backside of a page that was...
Yeah, I don't think that's supposed to be on there.
Okay.
Issue subpoenas.
Yeah, I didn't think that really quite fit, but
We debated whether or not to even put an Exhibit A in here, because normally when we do personal services contract, you like to fill in the information, but this is like a template of one that City of Gladstone has.
It was in the RFP, so we decided to include it in the packet.
my next question is there anybody here that's familiar with a 360, this looks like kind of a 360?
Right.
Yes.
Is there anybody here that's familiar with that? Because I would like to ask a couple of questions.
Well, I'm familiar with it. I've participated in a couple of them, but I haven't initiated any.
One of my questions has to do with the involvement of subordinates. In a small organization like this, if you bring some of your subordinates in, and if they actually have some things that may not be too flattering, and they make comments about that, especially in a small organization, if the comments are direct, someone as Mr. Swanson probably would know exactly where they came from just based on what the comment was. And I would hate to see us lose an employee or an employee have issues because of something like that, and I've never been involved in that type of evaluation, so I just want some feedback on how that...
Well, the ones that I participated in, I was very honest, and I never ever felt that I was at risk of being fired or discriminated against because of my comments. And it was a smaller company. We had about 30 people. Didn't have any problems. But I don't know how that would be here.
And I just talk about the transparency part of it is, those are the people actually that I spend probably 50 to 60 hours, more than my family in a lot of respects. So.
That's what concerns me. They may know all your secrets.
Exactly. So you wanna, but no, I think that's also a good question for when you select a the facilitator, you know, how do you deal with that, and, you know, what's been your experience, and I guess the fact I'm asking for it, so it's not like it's you know, it's a different sort of scenario, so.
One thing I've seen in the past, I actually have never been part of a 360 per se, but where you've had, to the best of the facilitator's ability, they will certainly generally not attribute comments to anybody personally, but almost rewrite them in a certain way,
So they're more
and
anonymous.
summarize them. Yeah, and so that adds a layer of you know, it makes it less obvious, I guess I would say. I think it's a very decent concern, as you say, especially in a smaller organization. It's just one of those things you gotta work around, but I think it's doable.
The only other question I had on it, when we talk about staff, I believe that probably the second most involved person in Eric's life would probably be the city attorney's office. Would that be considered a staff person? Would that be an outside business? Is that something that should be considered? Would that qualify under this proposal? Would that fit in there someplace? Or should it fit in there someplace?
So, the staff versus consultant, vendor.
I certainly wouldn't call me staff. I mean, I don't mean that in any, you know, derogatory way. Just that's, you know, you contract with the city attorney's office. You know, happens to be our firm.
I call you staff.
Yeah, in a shorthand, I get it.
Yeah.
Still don't, you know.
So, and that's just my question, because that's probably the second most.
Right.
Right.
But it would be an equal, i.e., the two of them, you know, would answer to us, respond to us, and the third would be the municipal judge. So,
I guess the question is, one is, are those appropriate people to be involved? Secondly, if they are appropriate people to be involved, does this agreement include that?
Again, I think we're back to, you know, it's a good question for the folks that's going to facilitate it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it, if you're interested in it being, it would be a criteria, or there's an area where the business partner part could fit, but, you know, that's, again, something I think you want to, I mean, it's, the process lays itself out that there would be a future decision made. We're not deciding that tonight, but there would be future decision made on who will make up the various groups, and then...
I also think it's worthwhile hearing from somebody. Ideally, you're going to select somebody that's you know, this isn't their first, you know, trip around the merry-go-round. So
Their first rodeo.
your first rodeo, yeah. And you know, get some advice from that individual or firm, and say, hey, you know, in your experience, what would you recommend?
That was all I had.
Sitting here patiently.
Will you interrupt anybody?
I've got some questions too.
Task number 2, 3 local citizens, the council is not involved in that, but the council is involved in task number 3, 3 city business partners. Is that a typo? Was that by design? Task number 2, that's one, sorry, I'm rambling here. Task number 2, does that mean that the mayor and the city administrator need to agree on those 3 citizens?
Yeah, I think you have, it sort of would come together. To answer your first question, I don't know if that's necessarily by design. I guess it could be changed to council, but it's, you know, however you want to do it. But to answer your second question, I guess it would be sort of a mutually agreed upon sort of process.
Okay, Linda?
Like Kim, I have never been involved in something like this, but I have a question. Why are we going to a third party to do this with the size of our city? And why are we going to put out there and spend anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 to do this? I mean, we're not a Portland, we're not Eugene.
To give you just a very lawyerly answer, because there's a contractual obligation to do so. I mean, the parties could agree to change that, certainly. I mean, but right now, as it stands, both parties have committed to going through that process with a third party neutral.
Yeah, and it can be changed in the future, but...
And I will say, I think, this was not something I asked for. This was actually, it was put in there, I think part of, when there was, Prossman was help assisting with.
Oh, okay.
And this was something that he had recommended, so it was not a...
Because I did make some phone calls to other cities, and I did call League of Oregon Cities, because I thought, why, for our size of our community, and why are we doing something on this large of a scale, and putting extra cost involved in doing this? So that answers the question if Ross put that in place.
Yeah.
It was actually Greg Proth, but, I mean, he was negotiating on our behalf.
Okay.
So. And by the way, congratulations on your 1 year plus anniversary.
It's been a great
It went by fast.
Yes.
Any other questions for staff?
Question Dave, on, Linda asked, Councilor Linda Neese asked a question about the cost, and was it relevant to whatever. We have done something for the last few years, and, I believe your, legal facility did that with the reviews. Oh, how much did that cost?
Jeez. Councilor Mercer, I wouldn't know offhand. I'd have to go back and look at the books for that. I think what we've done in the past, at least what we did with the prior city administrator, was you had essentially a list of questions, criteria that the council would go through, and it was on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, and there were opportunity for the councilors to make comments. We would compile that and then get that back to you and discuss that in executive session. So I can look into it. I don't think it would have been an extraordinary amount of money, because most of the effort in terms of that process was on, the mayor and the council.
Okay. My comment is, it has costs in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. I don't know what that comparison is, but we have spent that in the past.
I'd be surprised if it got up to anything like $6,000, but
Yeah.
it
had to be less than 1,000. You guys spent less than, 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, I mean, again, Heather Martin was probably the person that was leading that in our office. She tends to do a lot of the employment stuff, Ashley Driscoll as well. So, if you really are interested, I wouldn't bill you for the time it would take me to do that. I can get back to you on that point, but, offhand, I think it would be, I doubt it would be that much more than that.
I'd be curious. I'd like to have that figure.
Sure.
Do we need a motion?
Yes, we need a motion.
I would be happy to make one.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the issuance of RFP for City of Gladstone Facilitated Review of City Administrator.
Second.
A motion was made by Councilor Steve Johnson, excuse me, I'm combining the names here. Councilor Steve Johnson and seconded by Councilor Kim Sickman. Any further discussion?
I also was surprised, as a couple of the others, as to how much this is going to cost. But I think it's something that we need to do. I like the 360 part.
That's very comprehensive. Any further discussion?
Somebody may bid $1,000, so it may not be that expensive.
True. There you go. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Facilitated review has passed. All right, so we have two more things that were added. Number 10 is the team leader responsibility clarification that came from the strategic planning meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, just, introductorily, thanks for everybody again participating. We really felt like we got some great direction from the council on some major areas with respect to the council rules and the work that we're going to do on the boards and advisory committees, and what's the last? There's the council rules, and then the strategic plan finalization, so that we'll have that ready for the council by March. We've established some deadlines. So, and I when we were talking about the budget cycle, I was sort of wanting to make a suggestion that we actually put that as probably our first action that we do, is to pass consider and approve a strategic plan, because again, that'll drive a lot of our budget kinds of considerations, or at least the priorities that come out of that. So that's what we plan to do. And again, thank you, and of course we want to thank LB and Natalie, and I'm sure you'll want to comment about that later. So I think the real question, I'll let Steve expand on it, in terms of the work for I think it was Linda was identified to work on the councils and the committees. Perhaps, Mayor, you were working on the council rules.
Yes. Council rules update was myself, Neil, Tom, and Steve, and we need to whittle that down to 3 on all of these.
Yep.
Review roles and responsibility of council liaisons, committees, boards, and commissions, Linda, Neil, Steve, and Pat. And strategic planning group with Kim, Pat, and Steve, so that's 3, so that one's okay.
Yeah.
Right. We also added citizens to 2 of those.
Yes, we have citizens added to council rules and to roles and responsibilities of liaisons, committees, boards, and commissions.
Normally, we would advertise for and then appoint at council. Are we going to do that for these?
I think this is just a very broad review, and then it's going to go before City Council where we could have public comment. Do we really need to postpone these things moving forward with a 30-day...
I would like the opportunity to vote on who gets appointed to these committees. I don't know if that necessarily means they need to be advertised. We could probably approach some people. But I think the council should, as it always has done, approve the appointments of citizens.
Okay. Discussion from anybody else?
Mayor, but
yes.
Just quick. I think, as I recall the conversation, it was a long day, so please if I didn't get it exactly right, but I think what we were talking about was getting the team together without the citizens for at the first meeting, have that discussion, and then if we want to come back with, hey, we were thinking about these 2 people, then I think, yeah, if we want to get the council to go ahead and sign off on that, that would be acceptable. I don't think that would take
that way we can at least move it forward and...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Okay.
As long as it comes back to the council for approval of a vote.
We don't need to do a formal motion.
No, again, I think
this is just direction on how
team
we
leaders
do it.
I didn't get that.
did this all day. I think it's time to...
That was good. When I Yeah, turn it off. You don't know what it's going to say next.
I know.
You're scary. Lucky. All right, so any further discussion on that one?
Yeah. No, I think...
No, we're good?
Serious, got it.
Okay, so the last thing that I had was a discussion on the Senior Center interim director and
So yeah, the status on that was we've had an interim director for several months now. I think I'd like to move forward with the process to appoint a permanent director, and just wanted to get update you and get your feedback on that. So that's kind of the gist of that.
I always think we need to promote from within if it's at all possible, and I know Colin was kind of groomed to be the director eventually. I think he's done a great job. He's definitely a team player. I really enjoy working with him, and I think we need to give him a shot.
I'd love to do that. My only apprehension would be that the rest of the council would not. If that is an option, I have to agree in the 6 months that he's been there, and I'm there once a week delivering meals, or also as the liaison, some meetings with him. He's done a very good job. I think he has a really good vision of where he wants to see the senior center go, and I would be all for that as well if that's an option for us. And I've talked to Colin. He has expressed to me just the desire he'd be happy to do that. He just wants to know one way or the other
Yeah.
what the process is gonna be so that he can start moving forward with where he's gonna go as well, so this is good.
And I guess my, just to emphasize, that he was sort of brought in because we had a retired director and was brought in as an assistant to kind of, and he did some pretty yeoman's work even while the director was here and kind of getting involved with the senior center, and then in the time that he's been the interim as well, he's done a great job with continuing the efforts and making it the kind of facility it is. And as far as the department head staff, they really felt like he's been a great team player and has been invaluable when it comes to that environment, which is, it means a lot, I think, not only for me, but the other department heads. He's willing to step in and get out of the senior center mode and assist us in other different areas. I just wanted to throw that little bit of information out.
Well, my thought is that any position of this importance should be open to, I'm drawing a blank, but an open process. I agree. I think he's done a great job, and appreciate him stepping up. But that's my thought has always been that any department head should be an open process to selection.
So hiring processes are an expensive thing. I mean, it takes up staff time. That doesn't look like we would be heading towards a recruiter in this situation. That's very expensive, of course. If we have a guy a person that you're confident in, I think we ought to move forward on that.
I don't know that I would be opposed to promote from within rather than a process on this. Without diving deep into personnel issues, which I will not do, I have a question. Has he had a recent performance employee evaluation?
I've done a lot of them. I can't recall that one specifically. He'd probably be, I have to get back.
I think that would be something very important to have if we chose,
we do that as a matter of course, and I just can't. I can't recall where we're at, because it all varies on dates and stuff, so.
Okay.
And I like the fact that we promote within. I think that's important. I mean, even though Chief Jolly was in the position and we could have went out, but I felt that he did a good job and was excellent, and I think that says something about the employees and what we put into them and the faith that they bring forth, and the continuity and working together with everyone. So I support it.
Tom?
I haven't heard any negative thoughts, comments, notes, emails, whatever. So I would support.
So what do you need from us, a motion?
Well, it could be a couple ways. I mean, I can bring back a formal motion, appoint him at the next meeting, and that would have all the information that we normally provide when we make a recommendation. But before we did that, I wanted to make sure we had a conversation about process, because as somebody mentioned, he has been asking, and it is time for us to decide. So at this point, I guess the direction I'm hearing is that we'll move forward with the consideration at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the next thing, anything else business carried forward? I think we touched.
I think we got it.
We got it. All right.
Yeah.
So then we have business from the audience.
Susan Liston.
It's been a short meeting.
Has it? Okay,
Well,
we kept it moving, thank you. Okay, Susan Liston, 550 East Exeter Street. Greg Alexander spoke earlier about the property, and I also am really glad that you're willing to work with these people. I think that they deserve it. And I wanted to ask a question. Do you know that if it would go to litigation, if this should go to court, and the tenants of the property were to prevail, would the city be responsible for paying their attorney costs as well as our own?
That's not in the statute for Oregon law, no.
Okay.
The attorney's fees, so.
And the other thing I wanted to know about is that you had a realtor. My understanding really quickly is that you had a realtor and an attorney that was representing our city in this project, correct? Yeah. And they didn't? Okay. What I was wondering is the realtor or the attorney or whoever, are they responsible for not being knowledgeable of the laws regarding, the Oregon state laws regarding the tenants? Because I would suspect that it would have been the city's duty to tell the tenants, to work out these things with the tenants, the buyer's duty. Not the owner's duty. And my understanding was that the city just gave her a letter or something that didn't have any letterhead on it or anything to give to the tenants, and she wasn't aware of the laws. And none of the tenants were aware of the laws until Bruce Hildreth, who could afford an attorney or has an attorney, raised the issue. And then that's when the other tenants figured it out. So, I'm really glad you're not going to cut off anybody's water or lock anybody out. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Any other business from the audience?
I have nothing further.
All right, then we move on to business from the council. We'll mix it up. Pat?
No, I have nothing.
Tom?
Nothing, right.
Kim?
Okay. You better do, didn't you?
Just looking off and just...
Well, I don't have as much as I could have because of the snow. I had a couple of meetings that were canceled since our last visit. We did have a downtown revitalization meeting with the stakeholders, which are property owners or business owners in the corridor that we're looking at. And I had a really interesting comment. One of the consultants came up to me towards the end of the meeting and said, okay, when are the people that are going to be opposed to this project going to show up? We've had community meetings, we've had stakeholder meetings, we've had open houses. When are these people going to show up that are going to just try and beat the daylights out of us that this is a bad idea? I didn't have an answer for it, which was really a good thing. But, so I think that's a really positive thing as far as the direction and the process that's being used with some of our plans that we're putting forward. We've got a transportation system plan meeting coming up on February 9th, 2017. It is a community meeting from 6 till 8 o'clock at the Gladstone Senior Center. I did see that on the city's Facebook page. It was listed on there, and it's also on the web page. The Clackamas Confluence Planting Party. There's a planting party to plant, what's the proper word, potted plants, canned plants, shrubs,
native species,
native trees and shrub planting, and that is Saturday, February 11th. They're asking for the community to come out and help. Bring your favorite work gloves, rubber boots, and outdoor apparel. Sweets and hot drinks will be provided.
I'm there.
I-205 paving project. This summer they're going, ODOT is going to be paving I-205 from the I-5 interchange into Walwortham to the West Lynn Bridge. They have an online open house from January 29th to the 27th, that has project website there. I believe they're taking some public comment on that, so you've got till the 27th if that's important and want to make any comments and see what's going on there. We did have a question about the liaison suspension that was brought up last month, and I know, David, you sent out an email. Would you like to address that for me?
Yeah, so Ashley in our office took a look at the sort of the relevant, what we would normally do, charter, code, et cetera, and we didn't see anything that gave the mayor express authority to just, suspend those. Admittedly, they're really, the mayor's duties are kind of laid out in the charter, and, presiding over meetings. Certainly, when it comes to committees, the mayor has the express authority to basically nominate an individual for a committee with the consent and approval of the council. But liaisons to those committees is, there's nothing there. And so, at this point, I wouldn't say that there is that authority for the mayor to do that. But we didn't get into the bylaws. There's bylaws for certain committees. At some point we would, if you want us to look at that, we certainly can, but I think we, as ever, are trying to make sure we're not, spending your dollars unwisely. So.
Yeah, I think at the strategic planning meeting, we came up with a process moving forward, so.
Great.
That's all I've got. Thank you.
All right. Steve?
So for all of the conspiracy theorists that we have here this evening, I want to point out that all the motions this evening were passed unanimously. I don't know if we just, mentally came together on that or not, but I've heard some comments about that. It did happen tonight. I was at the North Clackamas NCCWC, North Clackamas Community Water Commission, and I swear I never get that right, even though I'm now the chair of that board. And coming to the council February 14th, Eric has left. I think that Jackie got it on the calendar. Dan Bradley, who is the manager of that, will be here to speak about IGAs and changes that they're asking for. I'm hoping for an extensive legal brief from our attorneys on that. My concern continues to be that they want to change from a percentage base to a gallons per day base, and how that affects us and how it affects our water rights, et cetera, et cetera. So,
so just for the record, we did in advance of Steve's meeting today take a look at the IGA, just in the barest terms of, well, how does it get amended? How does that work? Can it be less than a majority? Can it be less than unanimous approval? And we concluded that it has to be unanimous, and I believe their legal counsel agrees with that.
Right.
So on that issue, I think we've got that nailed down. So I probably would behoove Spencer or myself to talk with you a little bit more.
Okay.
I know we had that meeting with Dan and others around this issue months ago. And as I said, I was expecting to see something from them.
Yeah,
I did. So
I made mention of the fact that there seems to be kind of a disconnect between the attorneys on all sides. I made it clear that I would be looking to our attorneys, and I'm sure we will, to get that answer. There is also a rate increase in this. Imagine that. If rates go up, they go up in Gladstone, right? The Sunrise Water Authority people who are our partners would get a rate decrease. That would be Happy Valley and unincorporated North County. And I was informed that the commission can do that unilaterally. So we need to find out if that's true or not, those changes in rates.
That the commission itself can do that unilaterally.
That's what I was informed tonight. It would be nice to know that for sure. I argued the point that we just ended up buying more sewage capacity for Happy Valley. I'm not sure why we have to pay for more water as well, but I didn't get very far on that, and I'm mindful that we are a minority partner. We only have one vote there. So
This is the commission. This is the North Clackamas County Water Commission.
That is correct, yeah. So that's coming to council in February, and we'll get some more answers, and we'll hear what Nan Bradley has to say. I attended the police dog demonstration last night at Public Works. That was interesting. Our officer Olson was there, along with who is interested in starting a program. I know that there's some history there. We had some nice conversations about that. Clackamas County Deputy Easton was there with his dog and had a long conversation about dogs in general and what that means and benefits and downsides, et cetera, as we stood outside shivering. It was kind of chilly last night.
Oh, yeah.
What you guys all missed is that if you went inside in Public Works, there was a heater up there and it was much warmer inside. So when I asked, finally asked, can we go see a dog in action? Of course we can. So we went inside and it made more sense. So
the next time I'll ask. It was cold.
The last thing I have is that Linda and I attended the grand opening of Goodwill. We were there at 7 o'clock in the morning and cheered on for 15 minutes the first 119 customers into Goodwill. It was an interesting experience. I'm glad that Linda invited me to go along on that. That's all I have. Have a good evening, everybody.
Linda?
Yes, I attended Goodwill last week, and it was nice to have representation there, and they were glad to see somebody from Gladstone. And then I also attended a tourism meeting last week, too, and there's going to be some things that's going to be coming down the pike for us and that we can get more involved in. So, that's it.
Neil? Councilor Reisner. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
So, couple of curiosity questions. Where are we at in regards to the library mediator?
Yeah, so I can give an update on that, actually. I sent an email earlier today. I didn't go to the whole council. I'm happy to update you tonight. We did hear back finally from Jeff Batchelor, who is the would-be mediator, and he's got a very, very serious infection. I'm not going to go into the details. He was very forthcoming with what the details were, but his health is not in good shape. And so he did confirm for us that he cannot work, let alone mediate anything for the foreseeable future. So that led us to discuss with County Council alternatives. One of the people that we had on our list originally and was also recommended by Jeff Batchelor is a retired judge, Janice Wilson, who I've never worked with personally, but people in our office have. In fact, one of our now retired lawyers, just as of the new year, served on a committee with her many years ago and has great respect for her. Everybody we've talked to liked her and appreciated her work. The county felt that they were acceptable and felt that was fine. We have a date reserved. It's for March 21st. I know it's longer than what we've been hoping for, but there's not much we can do. The mediator that we selected has a pretty significant health event in his life. So the issue, we could certainly start to look for other folks. The good mediators. Mediation is just one of those things that has become, and I think with good reason and for good reasons, just more and more utilized. And so you really look to people that have experience, and those people are busy. And so I don't know that we'd get in with somebody else any sooner. That date is set. We've reserved that, and in fact, I was just got that yesterday from this judge's assistant. So,
well, thank you. And I was curious about the status of the park rules that the Parks Board had sent a few months ago. Had approved and sent...
Yeah, I think we talked about that. I'm trying to remember if within the last month or two, we said that we were going to wait for the parks planning process to complete
the master plan.
Oh, and then part of that effort was going to look at appropriate rules.
Sure.
Since it's been kind of, when that started and ended, it was kind of a long time. And
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's been a couple of years.
Yeah,
but that's understandable. Last night I attended the traffic safety committee, and I want to thank Ms. Libby Witz for stepping up and is now the chairman, and Neil has volunteered to stay as vice chair, and I want to thank all the committee members from traffic safety, budget, and the others that are here, and the rest of the audience for sticking around and listening and participating tonight. Thank you.
Mayor, on the mediator, I'd like to expand on that just a little bit, if I could. The email that we got, let me back up. This is a matter of great interest to our community. But the email that we got from you was privileged, do not discuss, do not disclose, et cetera, et cetera. This has happened a couple of times with discussion about the mediator. I understand when things are privileged information, but this is something that, if it's not, it would be helpful to be able to...
That's a fair point.
Can we...
Yep, that's a fair point, and it's sort of a force of habit, and so I will make a much more concerted effort with respect to these issues in terms of timing and who's going to do it. We talked about it at the open house. I'm not going to get into unless you ask me to. I'm not going to get into the details of merits, and that I think is exactly why you can have executive sessions on these topics, because otherwise, one side can not share those things and the other side is so. But a fair point, and I will when it comes to those just sort of pro forma details, I will make sure that that's clear that this can be publicly consumed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, for me, I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up. Eric and I have talked about having the very last thing on our agenda being something called appreciation, where we end our meetings saying thank you to people that have gone above and beyond or just helped move something forward, whatever. So I don't know if I need to actually formally ask all of you if we can do that, but I think other than the fact that it leaves, beyond the fact that it ends the meeting on a positive note, there was some actual science that came out recently that said that by appreciating people, it actually increases in endorphins or something. So, it actually has a physical positive effect by appreciating people. So, what do y'all think?
Well, can I just mention, you picked that up at a recent...
At the leadership boot camp.
Yeah, so the newly elected officials workshop. Yeah, I've kind of just personally started my own book called Book of Awesome, that I'm able to every day write something down that was positive, because I think too often we focus on what we don't have, and it's important to confirm what we have.
Other cities are doing it, and when we had our mayor breakout session, it was something that was very highly recommended by the gentleman that's the president of the League of Oregon Cities.
I believe the mayor usually speaks last in business from the council, and the mayor can probably speak on anything that they would like to for tonight and for the future. But I think it's part of the council rules has the council agenda in it, and as that's discussed, I think that would be a very appropriate place for it to officially be recognized, if that's the direction.
I agree. The mayor speaks last. You're welcome to say whatever.
Appreciate anybody and everybody that I want. There you go. So it's going to be an unsaid agenda item that I will be adding to the end. The other thing is I'm involved in a group called Celebrate Gladstone. I don't know if anybody of you know about it, but it's just a group of us that are getting together to come up with some events through churches or whoever to help celebrate our city. Come up with things that keep people engaged all year round. It's not associated with the city, it's not endorsed by the city, but if there's anybody that would like to come, it's open to everybody, and it's a very positive meeting. There's no complaining allowed at all. It's just positive. So we're meeting at 4:30 on Saturday. So if anybody's interested, just let me know, and I'll give you the specifics.
I know this isn't the procedure, I didn't fill out the card, it just hit me, so I just wanted to get a clarification, because it is stressful, if you don't know if your door's gonna be locked or your water's gonna be on. What does she have till when before this is gonna be at least another meeting or resolved? She can go to work down there and work until when?
I don't think we have an answer to that yet. I think that was what we wanted to have a discussion about.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, if she's got people she's doing Friday at 1 o'clock, and that's a stressful situation.
I understand.
Livelihood being in turmoil like that. Can I get some kind of, something that
I think just talk about it after the meeting, and it's something that is part of the negotiation.
It's part of the larger discussion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think what you heard tonight is there's no immediate intent to be closing that down. I think there also needs to be I think what I took from this and what I wanted it to emphasize is a sense of haste to resolve this.
Yeah.
And, if we can't, we can't. We can go our separate ways and do what we have to do, but I think we need to, work hard to get it done.
Right. And the only last thing was, thank you to everybody for the strategic planning session. That was wonderful. Thank you to the staff. There's not that many here, but for sticking with it and being there all day long, and for those people in the audience, the citizens that sat there all day long and listened to it as well. Thank you very, very much.
Sure.
I was pointing at Natalie. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about
Oh, she's gone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to. And thank you to LB Day and Natalie for putting it on. It was wonderful. But unfortunately, neither of them are here, so.
Yeah, well, and they worked, we worked together on really orchestrating that, not only for the staff, but...
And staff, I'm sorry. Okay, staff also.
and he did it pro bono, so I think that just needs to be...
Yeah, kudos to everybody. It was a great experience. So would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Motion made by Councilor Ken Sickman, seconded by Councilor Linda Neese. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 8:56 p.m.